Hey everybody, this is Eric Johnson with JM Turbo Coopers, and we're going to give you our first in our short series about how to make power and do it safely. Today we're going to be talking about what is power, how to make power, and how to do it safely. And when we say what is power, we're not talking about what actually is power, we're talking about in reference to the engine. So what is power to the engine? And power to the engine is simply the amount of air and fuel that you can get into the engine block. We're going to be talking about specifically about the air getting into the engine, so we're not going to be talking about fuel or timing or anything like that. So getting air into the engine is how you make power, and we're going to be talking in pounds per minute, which is an easy conversion to brake horsepower or crank horsepower on a dyno jet dyno. So for instance, this is a Mini Cooper S 2007 to 2013 uh, turbocharger compressor wheel, and it puts out about 25 pounds per minute. So at 30 psi, you're going to see about 250 horsepower, and the conversion is 10x of the pounds per minute of the compressor wheel. So this compressor wheel puts out 25 pounds per minute roughly. The um, the um, the horsepower then would be about 250 horsepower. Now we also have our Dominator, which is about 39 pounds per minute at 30 psi, and the new F56 turbo that's coming out, that's about 650 pounds per minute at 30 psi. So I've made a little diagram of our engine here. Now here's our engine, here's the turbocharger, and this is the intake pipe, and the intake pipes here, the after turbocharger hot side intercooler pipes, whatever, to the block, the engine block, and then we have the exhaust and the manifold to the turbocharger, and then we have the two pipes that represent the exhaust system. So what is power? Power is simply just getting more air into the engine, and you can do it a couple different ways. So we're not going to be talking about curves and bends and things like that, because they all take power away from you, and it just simply slow down the air. So anytime you change the size of the pipe, reduce it, dent, bend, anything like that will reduce power. However, the easiest way to make power is to increase the size of the pipe, and you can do this test here at home with a couple of straws. So I've got a stir stick from Starbucks that is like that will represent the intake pipes on this diagram here. So if you blow through this pipe, you can see how much resistance is in it. Now the first way to do an upgrade is either to shorten the pipe or to increase the size. So we cut a shorter one down, and if you blow through it, you get a little more airflow through it. Now you can also increase the size of the pipe to get more airflow and less resistance. So this pipe blows a lot better than those other two. Or you can shorten it too. By far, this is the best, easiest blowing pipe that I have right here on the table. So we take our Mini Cooper engine here, and Mini Cooper engines are designed to put at roughly around 200 horsepower. With the JCW is around 210, the Mini Cooper S is about 180. As you can see, we have a system, our system here is designed to make exactly 200 horsepower, this system. So when we do an upgrade, we're essentially redesigning the system. So things have to change, and the first thing that we change is we're going to put a bigger intake system on. So when we do a bigger intake system, you're going to get more power. And a lot of times people complain to me and say, oh, I only made 5 horsepower and they advertised 20 horsepower. Well, that's fine, but you haven't done anything to the rest of the system. So this will make it easier for air to get into the turbocharger, but you still have this pipe here, this pipe, and this pipe that all have the air has to travel through. So these pipes will resist the changes because they're not designed to flow over 200 pounds per, or 20 pounds per minute or 200 horsepower. So we then will upgrade the second part of the intake system, and then we'll put a new intercooler and intake pipes in, and we'll do the third part. And then if you get one of our stage 3 manifolds, we'll do the final part so that we have airflow to the turbo, and you may want to upgrade the turbocharger to put a bigger turbocharger in here. So with these upgrades, typically we'll see right around, 5 horsepower with this, 10 with the intercooler and stuff, and 5 with this, or 10 with this, and then 60 or 50 horsepower with the turbocharger, depending on which one you choose. So we can essentially say if we added 60 plus 10 plus 10, that's 70, 80, plus 5 plus 5, that's 90 horsepower. So we've added, let's see, 60, 70, 80, 90 horsepower. So we've added 90 horsepower to the system. So now instead of running 180 pounds per minute of air, you're actually running 170 pounds per minute of air, or 270, I'm sorry. So we're running 270 pounds per minute of air, roughly about 270 horsepower. And, but the problem with this is if you look at the system here, and this is the way that most people upgrade their cars. They say, oh, I want an intake system. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. And most of the cars that we talk to with our customers have this system exactly right here. Now, if you've watched our how to kill your engine with back pressure or a clogged catalytic converter, you may understand that there's a problem here on this table. And the problem is that you've increased this 9 pounds per minute of air, additional 9 pounds per minute of air, but you have not increased the exhaust size. And in turbocharging, exhaust flow is paramount, the number one most important part of a turbocharger upgrade or any upgrade on a turbocharged car. And the reason being is because if you've watched our video with how to kill your engine with a catalytic converter, you have just created a situation that has created a slowing of air or blockage in your exhaust system by not upgrading your exhaust system. Now, if you did watch that video, you understand that turbochargers don't have any way of really sealing the exhaust flow from the engine. So when you get a blockage or a slowing of airflow in the exhaust or a restriction in the exhaust, you actually have a potential to get exhaust into your engine via the turbocharger. Now, on a normally aspirated car, it doesn't matter. On a supercharged car, it doesn't matter because there's no path for the exhaust to go in your engine. Now, on a turbocharged car, there is no way to seal off the exhaust from the engine because the turbine assembly, because this turbine assembly is spinning at 250,000 RPMs. So they use a pressure seal system, and the pressure seal is nothing more than a C-clip. And the C-clip does not contact the turbine assembly and is open at the inside of it around the turbine, and that gives it enough space to ride freely in the back of the turbine, the cartridge assembly, so that it doesn't rub the turbine assembly. And what happens is when you get a buildup of pressure or restriction or a clog or something in the exhaust, there's a couple things that can happen. One, that pressure seal, which is a C-clip, will actually be pushed forward into the turbine assembly, and it'll eventually wear it out until you've left with nothing but a thin shell, and then the exhaust just pours right into your engine. Or the whole turbine assembly will force its way into the thrust bearing and wear out the thrust bearing and blow up your turbo. But there's more deadly than that is when you don't know that you've got a mild pressure and it does neither of those things and your car runs normal. But what ends up happening is actually the exhaust will go past the pressure seal and it will prevent the oil from draining in your engine. And how that does is the engine will become pressurized by exhaust. The oil that's spinning off the turbine that is spinning at 250,000 RPMs is basically foam, so anywhere the air blows, the oil is going to go. So if the air is blowing from the exhaust and into the engine, and it will also blow past the exhaust and past the engine and into the intake system. So that oil is going to drain out, and not only will that oil drain out, when you let off the throttle, all the oil, the pressure that's in the engine will all come rushing back out the exhaust through the turbo out into the exhaust. That will cause premature cat clogging, but it will also clogging but that will increase the clog in your exhaust. And when that happens, you will get more oil into the intake system, more oil into the engine, and that contributes to high levels of oil smoke getting into your intake and liquid oil getting into your intake. And when you get both of those into your intake, you can get pre-ignition knock and even hydro lock. And we've seen this on more than one occasion with customers that don't want to upgrade their exhaust system. They think that they're okay with the stock 2.5 or 2.25 exhaust system, but you're not, because that oil will go into your intake system. And when liquid oil goes into your intake system, not only will it cause premature valve coking, but you will also have a chance for hydro lock. That can damage your pistons, bend rods, bend cranks, and it can also rupture the head gasket seal. All of those things. It also increases the EGTs, which causes premature failure of the turbocharger, the exhaust system. It'll crack the exhaust. It'll melt the wastegate. It does terrible things when you just get oil flowing through the intake system, because when you do have oil going into the engine, it's not completely burned off in the engine. So it goes into the exhaust, and it's burning in the exhaust and on your catalytic converter. Not only does that raise the EGTs, but it also causes premature coking of your catalytic converter, and just makes it excessively worse, the condition that you're seeing here. So the blockage excessively worse. So now 20, 30, 40 years ago, you would know about some sort of restriction or damage in the turbo, and you would see white smoke going out the exhaust every time you let off the throttle. But nowadays, with the catalytic converters and how efficiently they work, you will not see a drop of a puff of smoke. You will not see any sign that you've got a back pressure issue or a clog in your exhaust or a restriction. So you need to be wary of that, and you need to prepare your exhaust in advance. And this problem is going to be even worse on the F56s, and the reason is because, yes, the F56 uses the same roughly the same size of turbocharger, but the F56 has less intake and exhaust pipes to deal with. And on top of that, they use a 2-liter engine. So that means you're going to get more airflow into the engine. You've got more combustion area. You've got you've got bigger combustion area. You got 2 liters rather than 1.6. So we've seen that. So you have a chance of making more power out of the 2-liter a lot sooner with less upgrades. For instance, when we do tuning, we're already at about the limit, which is about 250 horsepower or 25 pounds per minute of air, meaning that we see problems on the 1.6 liters when you go over 250 crank horsepower with exhaust flow. So on the F56, just tuning the car will get you at or above 250 crank horsepower. So the first upgrade on the F56 should, and in my estimate, in my mind, it should be any car, should be the exhaust first. On any turbocharger car, you always start with the exhaust first. And the reason is because it is the safest upgrade you can do. It's not the most power producing upgrade, but you will reduce the chance of damaging your turbocharger and damaging your engine. And that is the whole entire goal of doing upgrades. You don't want to damage it by doing an upgrade, which you can. So starting with the exhaust system first to make sure it has adequate flow is where you should start on any turbocharged car, not at the intake system. On the F56, you can probably, just by putting a new intake system in it, you can come close to damaging the engine. And we've seen this already in some customers overseas. So start at the exhaust first, and you'll be safest. Your engine will last long, and you potentially won't have to upgrade to forged pistons, because forged pistons don't fight against knock, hydrolock, or anything. They're just designed to hold more pressure, to withstand more cylinder pressure and more combustion pressure. Do nothing for knock, do nothing for hydrolock or anything like that. So call us if you have any questions. We also will be talking about tuning on our next series to make sure that you select a safe tuner that does safe tuning. You can reach us at support at jmturbocoopers.com or call us if you have any questions. Our number is 480-559-5401, or you can reach us at our website, which is jmturbocoopers.com. Anyway, we hope you have a great day and happy tuning.